Hi, this is Jackie Sharp from Purrfect Practice. Today I'm going to be sharing with you the second lesson in my series, An Introduction to Piano Technique. The topic of today's lesson is going to be the thumb. Now, if you haven't already done so, I would advise that you go and watch the first lesson before you continue with this video. It's important that you understand the concepts taught in lesson 1 before moving on. Okay, so let's get started. I'll be doing all my demonstrations in the right hand, but everything that I do in these videos, I'd really suggest that you go through them in the left hand as well and give a lot of thought to each of your hands independently. Okay, now we're going to start by breaking all the rules, and we're going to make a loose fist, go in a C position, a middle C position, and just drop the hand. Okay, so now we're going to find a natural hand position. Remembering what we learned in the first lesson, we're going to start by raising the bridge of the hand, so raising these first joints. And as we do that, we're going to let the other joints go into a natural position. So we should end up in a position something like this. Okay, just one more time. Grabbing under here with your other hand, with the second finger of your other hand. Just lifting up here at the bridge. And coming into a natural hand position. Now, if I let go of that and look down, I'll find a pretty good hand position for my thumb. So what have I found? I've found myself pointing slightly to the left. I've found my thumb fairly upright, and I've found that I'm touching the key just about here on the left side of the nail. When you're talking about the left hand, everything will be exactly the opposite. So it'll be the right side of the nail, and it will be pointing slightly to the right. Okay, so just one more time to do that. So we raise up, raise up, raise up, get these into a natural position, and then we find our thumb fairly upright, we find ourselves pointing slightly to the left and touching the key with this part of the finger. Okay, so now let's talk about the joints of the thumb. When I ask my students how many joints do the fingers have, they look at their hands and they tell me 1, 2, 3. For all of the fingers 2, 3, 4, and 5, they'll find me 3 joints. When I ask them about the thumb, the younger ones sometimes say 1. The older ones tend to say 2. But in actual fact, there are 3. So we have 1 joint here, 1 joint here, and another one which actually connects the thumb to the wrist. We find that by moving along the thumb, pull along your thumb, and then you'll find the base. And if you do an inwards motion of the thumb, you'll feel that joint moving. Okay, so that is actually your joint number 1, this one up here. Your joint number 2 is here, and joint number 3 is here. This time I'm starting with talking about joint number 3, then 2, then 1. Okay, joint number 3, as we know, we want the finger to be pointing slightly to the left if it's in the right hand, and slightly to the right if it's in the left hand. So that joint basically its mobility on when it's fixed on the piano key is to the right and to the left, to the right and to the left. So that joint is going to control that. So it's important that we don't overextend that joint, because that causes tension here. So we don't want that. We want slightly to the left. We don't want too much to the left, because otherwise we're going to play two keys. So basically slightly to the left, which is going to have a slight curve to the thumb down there. All right, moving on to the next joint here. Now this joint is not really responsible for sideways movements as much as it is for upwards and downwards movements. So if I use this joint with upwards and downwards movements, I actually find, if I'm using that joint in isolation, that my thumb is actually quite weak, which is surprising. So the thumb is, just using that joint, surprisingly weak. Just try it out a bit. I'll do it now. Compare that sound to, which is moving primarily from the first joint. Okay, so we obviously need more than just the movement of that joint. Now, if I move from this joint, the first joint, up and down movements, I can do that. I definitely get a deeper sound. But the problem is that this particular joint is responsible for this type of movement, stretching and closing of the hand. So if we're using this joint repetitively to go up and down, we're going to get terrible injuries. So what can we do? We know that we don't want to be having upwards and downwards movements originating from that joint. But that joint is connected to the wrist, which is connected to the forearm. So what we do when we play the thumb is we also include a small forearm movement from side to side, which gives us greater depth. So we have a lift, which involves that joint, slightly the forearm, slightly that joint, or possibly only that joint, but the downward motion definitely should involve the forearm. So this way, I can have strength. Now, if I have too much forearm movement, so too much of a push downwards, what happens is that everything will collapse. Watch. So I'm going to push fairly heavily down. And I find myself playing on somewhere around here of my thumb. I don't want to be doing that. Everything else collapses. My bridge is gone. Everything is gone. So I only want a slight movement of the forearm in playing the thumb. So this is a basic movement of the thumb. Don't forget, do it on the left hand as well. And in a later lesson, we're going to be looking at various other movements that the thumb is capable of, because it's an amazing finger and is capable of a wide range of movements. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. Thanks for watching. Bye.